What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. I am your host, Stephen Wright, joined as always by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing?
Steve, it's good day over here. It's Cowboys week in the Philadelphia area, so no matter how bad the division is, Cowboys week is always exciting.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. I have no idea what to expect.
Sunday night football, too, so it should be interesting to put the NFC East back on display after Thursday's, I don't even know what to call it. You can call it a game because the Eagles and Giants.
Yeah, I'm sure when the schedule makers are putting the schedule together that this was a prominent feature, a nice Sunday night game and two people that were probably going to be the top of the division. And here we are, two just terrible teams.
Yeah, still top of the division, but the rest
technically,
of what you said, not
not the case. What a mess. But I am turning to Wentz again in our work league, which is great because I am just super overexposed to him. But you can't trust Cam, and this matchup is amazing. So, yeah,
it doesn't get much better than this. I mean, they got the Giants again in 2 weeks, but this is the way to go. I mean, we have a decision on our hands there. We have in our the One Dynasty League, we have Lamar against the Steelers or Carson against the Cowboys. We just traded for Lamar, so we had one start of him, then the bye week, and now we have to decide if we're going to sit him this week.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good lead into our first question. You ready to get started?
Yeah.
So first one, we have Lamar versus Steelers. So your top level quarterback against a tough defense, or Herbert at Denver. So kind of your rookie that's been looking good and against a beatable defense. Do you go with your veteran or do you go with your rookie? What do you think?
Tough. I think I got to stay with Lamar. I know it's a really tough defense, but I just don't know that I can bench him yet. And anything can happen in these divisional matchups. Could be like we see the defensive gridlocks, but very well could be, Lamar can somehow get loose for just a couple carries, and Herbert has done that as well. But I think the statistics show that the Denver Broncos defense is beatable, but from what I remember hearing, I feel like their defense isn't as bad as they are made out to be. I know the offense allows for defenses to be pretty good to stream against Denver, but I think their defense has been a little, staunch. So while on paper Herbert has a much better matchup, I'm still going to go with Lamar here, but I think both guys are QB1s this week.
Yeah, I'll take my my normal approach and just kind of split the answer. If you are if your projections are looking good and you just need a solid floor, then I would go with Lamar. But if you need an upside shot, like you're projected to lose by a fair bit, I take Herbert because I think he's got the higher upside. Like you said, anything can happen, especially with Lamar Jackson. But these Baltimore Steeler games, regardless of who the quarterbacks are, tend to be these kind of low-scoring, defensive, rush the ball, boring kind of games. So, I don't know what kind of upside's there, but that's how I'll frame it. If I'm looking for a floor, I'll take Lamar. If I'm looking for upside, I'll take Herbert. If it's just an absolute vacuum and you're forcing me to pick one, I'll side with you and just say I got to go with Lamar.
Next up, we've got 4 RB, choose one PPR. Got James White against in Buffalo, McKinnon in Seattle, Gus Edwards against the Steelers, and Philip Lindsay against the Chargers.
So Lindsay's getting thrown out immediately just because of the injury.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. So we're just going to toss him out. The other two or the other three are interesting. I'm not going to go with Edwards. I could see it being a decent game for him, just like squeaking in 2 touchdowns or something like that. But I'm not interested in that, his situation to begin with, and then that matchup. So it leaves White and McKinnon, both of which I'm not super excited about. I guess I kind of split it like I just did before, where if I need a floor, I'll go with White. If I need upside, I go with McKinnon. In a vacuum, I'll take McKinnon, I guess. I mean, that game against Seattle could be really high scoring. And I would think they'll be able to support multiple running backs. And with Debo looking to be out, maybe McKinnon factors more in the pass catching game again. he's such a scary start after what happened last week and the 49ers running situation as a whole, where they tend to cycle through people. But James White's got a tough matchup against Buffalo. Cam hasn't looked very good. I mean, that's not exactly screaming out as a easy play either. So I guess I'll go with McKinnon. What do you think?
Yeah, I lean McKinnon here as well. I'm throwing Lindsey out just because I don't think he plays. Even if he does, I think he's very limited. I just don't know if we'll be able to get through the concussion protocol in time. Edwards, I think I like the volume the best, but that's a really tough matchup against Pittsburgh. You're banking on him falling in the end zone once or twice. So it comes down to McKinnon or White. James White actually had a really bad week last week as well. He had one touch for one catch for 3 yards. So don't know if it can get that bad again, but even so, he has only played 4 games this year. Only once has he been in the top 20. So I know it's a good matchup against Buffalo. They'll likely have to be coming back. But I lean McKinnon here unless we hear otherwise about, rest. You have to know that is going to be a risk in the San Fran offense. But it always is. You're always banking on getting the one that's going to hit when you really don't know. So we'll see who's healthy, if Coleman's ready to go. But if it's just Hasty and McKinnon, I am, pretty confident in going with McKinnon over White here.
Okay, our next one's tough because we could literally just put a little asterisk next to everyone here. PPR pick 2. It's a flex question. We have Jalen Reagor versus the Cowboys. Assuming that he plays, it looks like he's on track to return. We have Richard Rodgers versus the Cowboys. Again, nothing wrong with him, but you could be seeing Goddard return. You have Callaway at Chicago, who did not practice. So apparently he's got a little bit of an injury. Preston Williams versus the Rams has Tua for the first time. And then we have Mooney versus the Saints. We have Allen Robinson in concussion protocol now. So that kind of catapults Mooney up there. What Tua are you taking out of that group?
Mike Thomas hasn't practiced either.
Who didn't?
So, Mike Thomas hasn't practiced today. Michael Thomas. So Callaway maybe has a little bonus there as well. If Reagor plays, I think I'm going to go with him as just an upside shot because I don't have much else other than him. He's the only deep threat that you can rely on. I think he has the most upside out of everyone here. Rodgers is probably the safest floor. I don't know that you want to play both of them, but if Reagor doesn't play, Rodgers' floor maybe even a little bit higher. I'm, not really looking to play Preston Williams unless I really have to, just especially with the rookie quarterback there. So I'm going to try to lean away from him. I've got his teammate, Devontae Parker, in the league and have to play him, but not thrilled about it just because we don't know what Tua is going to do. And if both Mike Thomas and Allen Robinson don't play, I think I lean Callaway, but Mooney has looked pretty good. So, I'd probably go with one of them, Callaway or Mooney and Rodgers. I think Rodgers is probably the one guy I'm locking in because he's the only safe option here. I think he's definitely going to get somewhere between 5 and 10 targets. And, PPR are going to get some catches out of him. And then I'd probably rank him Reagor, and then if let's say both don't play or both don't play, I'm probably leaning Reagor, Callaway, Mooney. But it could really go anyway here. What do you think?
Oh boy, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. It's really difficult. I'm going to toss out Preston Williams for all the reasons you mentioned. I need to see some stuff from Tua before I do anything with that situation. So I'm not going to play him. I'm assuming, do you think Goddard plays this week?
He's practiced, and I think there's a chance, but I would think they want to give him another week. So, obviously, that's what it comes down to for Rodgers. If Goddard's playing, then I'm not playing Rodgers. But if he's the only tight end, and they do have their bye coming up, so there's a chance Reagor and Goddard just practice this week, but don't play, and they come back after the bye. I think Reagor has a better chance of playing, but I, at this point, don't know out of any of them.
Yeah, it makes it difficult. I guess if Goddard doesn't play, I want somebody from this Cowboys matchup. I guess I'll go with Rodgers if Goddard doesn't play. And then I think I lean Mooney on the Callaway Mooney side. just because, I mean, we've seen Drew Brees spread it around to a lot of different guys before. I mean, Callaway could just disappear. You still got Traquan Smith there, and, it just kind of worries me. So I think I'd go with Mooney. If Goddard does play, I would switch the Rodgers pick to Rieger, just because I have to have somebody in that matchup, but I really don't want both of them. Because I could also, as bad as the Cowboys defense is, that game could go sideways for the Eagles as well, because, they're not the most consistent. So I would lean one of the Eagles and then Mooney. With all this hesitation, Will, with both of us not liking a lot of these options or being shaky on them, would you take our prior pick McKinnon over all of them, or?
I probably do. I think there's just so much unknown, right? It depends on who's playing. If all of the guys are playing and all of the guys you need to not play aren't playing, I think Rodgers is probably still safest out of them all. McKinnon probably second there with him. I just worry that maybe there is an injury there. It's just really weird the way that Shanahan did that. He's resting him, but has him active. It doesn't list it as like an emergency. So I don't know. I probably go Rodgers and McKinnon just because I want to see Reagor with the game back. I think even if he does play, it's probably limited. So you're really hoping for one or two big plays.
Yeah, I agree.
So next up here, we have a 0.5-point PPR. Deontay Johnson at Baltimore and Robbie Anderson at Atlanta.
Yeah, I can't pass up Robbie Anderson here. I mean, he's been good all year. He's got the easy matchup. Like, I know Deontay Johnson's looked great, but, he's been banged up like 3 games in a row, and he's got a tough matchup against Baltimore. I'm not playing that game if I don't have to. So I'll take Robbie Anderson pretty easily here.
Yeah, and here for the same reasons you said. Robbie's been a wide receiver 1 this year, really. So I think until he proves that you can't start him, you have to roll with him. He's been getting targets. He's been getting yards. I think he's only got 1 or 2 touchdowns, but even so, he's still finishing very good, in the top 20, a couple times outside of it, but still very solid floor. Whereas Deontay Johnson, there's just that injury risk that I'm okay to play, if I need to, but Robbie Anderson's an option. I'm taking Robbie.
Okay, our next one's another 0.5-point PPR. Kenny Golladay versus the Colts or Tyler Boyd versus the Titans.
Yeah, so I am going to go with Kenny G. He's still in that contract year. We saw him make some really good contested catches and plays last week. Colts defense is a quality defense, but I'm still going with the talent there, and I think Stafford trusts him and relies on him. I like Tyler Boyd, just a lot more weapons, and I think it's a lot more even in the pecking order, whereas Golladay is the guy to go with. So pretty easily Golladay.
Yeah, the same. It's like a tier break, right? Like Kenny Golladay is a tier above Boyd at this point. It wouldn't surprise me if Boyd outscores him, because that's just how it works in Cincinnati sometimes. Yeah. But, the odds are with Kenny Golladay. Like you said, he's not a one-man show because Hawk's doing pretty good. But as far as wide receivers go, Marvin Jones isn't doing what he's done in the past. Where Tyler Boyd, you have A.J. Green popping up. Higgins has been breaking out. So there's just a lot more to deal with on his front. So, yeah, pretty easily Kenny Golladay on my end as well.
So next up here, we've got Gus Edwards versus the Steelers and Jay Dobbins versus the Steelers, PPR.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. I mean, Dobbins hasn't really been doing a lot this year outside of the first week. But I could see it being a more Dobbins-heavy week as far as like a pass-catching game kind of goes. Could you imagine the Steelers are going to shut down the run? But yeah, Edwards, like I said before when we were talking about him earlier, it just takes a one-yard touchdown and then, a handful of their carries, and then he's a quality back for the week. So
yeah,
it kind of feels like it should be going Edwards, but I'm going to take my shot on Dobbins. It feels like probably that's the underdog play, but call it a hunch. I'm going with Dobbins this week.
Yeah, I think that's probably the move. And obviously this is all predicated on Mark Ingram not playing. Hopefully Mark Andrews plays. But if Mark Ingram doesn't play, you're deciding between the two of these guys. think it comes down to floor and ceiling play. They probably are close floor wise. You're going to get more carries with Edwards, but Edwards doesn't even have a catch on the year, so you're probably limited on the PPR benefit there. Whereas you're going to have some targets out of Dobbins. You're probably banking more on getting a few catches and a couple big plays. Yardage wise could be pretty similar. Dobbins, obviously, the more upside. But we'll see. I mean, Dobbins only has 2 touchdowns on the year, and Edwards only 1. So, not, I think it's close. If, in a vacuum, I'm going to play Dobbins. But if you are just banking on you want to get a definite 6 or 7 points, I think Edwards is the guy. But overall, I'd rather just take the shot at Dobbins and see if I can get a couple big plays.
And the next one, we got some quarterbacks, 2 quarterbacks with great matchups here. Tom Brady at the New York Giants or Bridgewater versus the Falcons.
Yeah, that's interesting. Both great matchups, as you said. I lean Brady. I know Bridgewater's in a matchup where it's likely going to be much closer, but I think Tom is kind of getting in that rhythm here where he's not forcing it to anybody. He's spreading the ball around. Obviously, 350-5 last week is a great game. And he may not have to do as much against the Giants, but I'm going to take him, with Godwin out, weapons aren't as devastating as they usually are. I don't think Antonio Brown can play yet, so maybe not as dynamic that they may not blow them out. So maybe it's a closer game. Who knows? I'll go Brady slightly, but both are good plays I think here, I think.
Yeah, they both are good plays. I'll lean Brady as well. You always have the Thursday night factor with Bridgewater. Those games going awry sometimes, but yeah, it's kind of
should be a fun.
Yeah, it should be, and it has the potential for being a really high scoring game because they're good, 2 solid offenses and 2 trash defenses. So it could be a game you want to piece in. But I'll take Brady against the Giants. Like you said, he's been really good lately. I can't pass him up.
All right, next up, standard scoring: Myles Gaskin versus the Rams or Henderson against the Dolphins.
Yeah, this is interesting. When I first saw it, I immediately went with Henderson. But then, looking at the most recent weeks in their fantasy production, I think I'll go with Gaskins. He's looking the more consistent of the two. A tougher matchup for him, so that is kind of worrisome. But I think I'll take my shot there. He's got a lot less competition to deal with than Henderson as well. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm going to go with Gaskins. I also see like the Tua line. Maybe Tua helps him out. As far as like a mobile quarterback, helping out the running back. Maybe they also lean on him a little bit more because you have Tua starting his first game. So yeah, I'm taking Gaskin. How about you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pluses in Gaskin's side of the argument. The one big thing, with Tua, it could help, him being a rushing quarterback, but just being a rookie, maybe they don't move the ball as well as they did with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So it could limit his upside and touchdown potential. I don't think he relied on touchdowns too much. He's only got 1 score on the year. He's doing a lot of his work through the passing game and just getting a lot of volume. So I'll go with Gaskin. Hopefully they rely on him and hopefully Tua opens some stuff up. But you're going to have to understand that there's probably a lower floor than Henderson because the offense could just sputter and not look good, right? I don't imagine that they go back to Fitzpatrick even if they don't look good the whole game.
Yeah, you need an injury. You can't turn to your rookie and then turn back the very first game, right? So you got to imagine it's his job for the rest of the year. Next one's a pretty interesting one, I think. PPR, Ayuk at Seattle, Devontae Parker versus the Rams or Corey Davis in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Davis looked decent last week. I'm probably not looking his way out of these 3, though. Comes down to Ayuk or Parker for me, and I think I lean Ayuk. He has a great matchup. Debo's gone. The running backs are depleted a bit. I imagine they try to use him out of the backfield as well as the passing game. So he has a ton of upside. Parker a little more volatile, right? They probably both have lower floors, but Ayuk, I think he's just got so many targets his way, and they're just going to be likely more quality targets against a bad defense, whereas Parker's going to be going up against Jalen Ramsey, likely with a rookie quarterback. It comes down to, do you believe in Tua? Do you believe Tua in his very first game? I think that's what it really is.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me as well. I mean, Corey Davis could be the answer here, but you can't predict him. Like, yeah, he had a good week last week and, had trash weeks before that. So not super interested in him. And yeah, like Parker would be a good matchup if this was Fitz. But at the end of the day, whether you like to or not, it's hard to rely on his weapons his very first start in the NFL. That is quite worrisome. And it's not like it's his first start in the NFL and he's going up against like the Carolina defense or, the Falcons or something. You're going up against Aaron Donald and Ramsey. So it's not going to be the easiest of matchups for him as well. While Ayuk, like you said, has a great matchup. Debo is going to be missing the week, and that should lead to a lot more work heading his way. So, yeah, it's going to be Ayuk for me as well.
All right, in this next last matchup here, we've got Matt Ryan at Carolina, Carson Wentz at home for the Cowboys.
Oh boy,
I must have all. I don't have 6 of the top 12 quarterbacks here because 2 other guys that I wouldn't mind playing here.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough decision to make. I think my heart leans Wentz because of the Cowboys matchup, but my head says when you have the option between the two, why not pick the guy that has like actual weapons to utilize and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, right? So I guess I will go ahead and go with Ryan. I'll follow that line of logic. I have no issue with either of them, but I'll take Matty Ice here.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to. Both matchups are great. Both, key quarterbacks are playing fairly well. It just comes down to the game script, and there's, a probably better chance that the Eagles are, winning and maybe down, establishing the run and don't need to pass as much than Matt Ryan. Going against a pretty solid offense with, I believe McCaffrey is back this week. We'll see. But regardless, that offense is good with him or without. So I think I lean Matt Ryan, but once again, both are good options.
Okay, let's go ahead and jump over to some trade questions here, Will. Dynasty Superflex. Would you rather have Juju Smith-Schuster or Jerry Jeudy in a 2022 second?
Tough. I probably lean the Jeudy in second side. The second doesn't do a ton for me. So I'd maybe try to see if I can get a little more, but I like the upside of Jeudy, whereas Juju, it's uncertain what you're getting out of him next. I like the talent, and he's had a few breakouts, but I don't know that talent-wise he's on the potential level of Jeudy. And who knows, right? Denver could, end up drafting a quarterback this year, and the outlook could be very different if they end up with Trevor Lawrence, likely not him, but one of the other quarterbacks in this draft. So I probably lean Jeudy in the pick side. Second was nice. 2022 is a little further away, but still good ammo to have.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think if I'm a contender, I'd probably stick with Juju because he's going to help me more this year than I think Jerry Jeudy is going to. But I'm with you overall. Like if I'm in a rebuild, I'm taking Jeudy, and in an absolute vacuum, I'm probably taking Jeudy as well. You have the uncertain future with Juju. Like I don't know where he's going to end up. It's been a couple weeks in a row. I think we keep bringing it up, probably because he keeps popping up in trade questions. As far as we just don't know what's going to happen with him next year. Allen Robinson could leave the Bears, and Juju could end up with the Bears, dealing with whoever it is that is being the quarterback of the Bears moving forward. So, I just don't think I want to play that game with him. So yeah, I'll take Jeudy. But again, if I'm a contender, I'd probably stick with Juju because he's going to help me compete more this year than I think too.
Right. Next up, we have Dynasty Superflex, OBJ or Michael Gallup in a second-round pick this coming year.
This is a good question, man. It really comes down to what is OBJ's valuation at this point. Per over and over. And like I've lost track. Is this like 5 years in a row? They got hurt
I
twice.
mean, I don't know if that's all season enders,
Yeah,
but
not season
he's
enders.
definitely been injured.
Yeah, like he played through last year, but he was hurt all year, right? This year's gone. I'm starting to lose track. The year before that, he was in with the Giants. I think he lost a year, played a half a year. The year before that, something like that. I mean, he keeps going down. Doesn't have the best chemistry with Baker. Is he, it's kind of like a Juju situation. What's his future going to be? Is he going to be shipped out somewhere? But it's not like you're getting some stable asset on the other side either. Like Gallup, I don't know what his role is going to be with Lamb emerging and Cooper there. So it's tough. I think an absolute vacuum, I'll stick with OBJ. I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow, but that's where I'm going to place my bet. But I don't have any issue with either side. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm trying to figure out who is, what each of these teams are. Because it both seems to be returns that you don't want if you were not a contender, right? OBJ, you're banking on him coming back next year, but he's done for the year. Gallup is pretty unusable the rest of the year, and the pick, you're looking toward the future as well. So I'm not really sure that this is a good matchup or trade. I'll stick with the OBJ sides because I feel like I can get more, but yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, let's go to the world of redraft. We don't see too many of these come up. We got a PPR, Amari Cooper, straight up for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it depends on what you need. I typically want to stream the quarterback position. So in a vacuum, I'll take the wide receiver that probably is more of a wide receiver 2 rest of the year. Maybe a flex because of the uncertainty in that offense. But yeah, I mean, if there's not much out there and you are pretty loaded outside of quarterback, I won't mind cashing in and trying to grab Lamar. In a vacuum, I'll take Cooper though.
Yeah, I think it really depends on who my quarterback is for the side that's getting Lamar. If I'm upgrading from like a streaming position to Lamar, I think I'll take Lamar, just because of all the uncertainty at the quarterback position with Cooper, all the different options there. It's just kind of worrisome. But if I'm making some moderate upgrade, like from maybe like Deshaun Watson up to Lamar, like I'm not going to do that. I'll just stick with Watson. So it depends on the quarterback situation. I have no problem on either side there.
Perfect. Next up, we've got a keeper redraft league. So it was redraft PPR, but with the notion that there are keeper implications here. Adam Thielen, who would be an 8th round keeper, or DeAndre Hopkins, who would be an unspecified keeper.
Yeah, I guess that's what makes it easy, right? Like in a vacuum, obviously you're taking Hopkins, but 8th round value on Thielen's pretty good. And you got to imagine, I mean, again, Hopkins wasn't specified, but you got to think that's probably first, second round at this point. So it is pretty interesting. I think I'm going to have to stick with Hopkins though, even with the higher, what you assume to be at a higher keeper amount. I mean, having him locked up with Kyler for so long is going to be great. Where Thielen's not the youngest guy. Cousins hasn't been the best this year. That offense wants to run the ball, and if they can fix some things on defense, they're going to do that, and that's going to lessen his value a little bit. So I'll take Hopkins, but I get where the question's coming from.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Hopkins as well. Both are good options. I like Hopkins rest of season more, but both are going to be solid ones to use. Hopkins, yeah, probably first or second round. It also depends on how many keepers you have, right? Because if this is just a one keeper team, 1 or 2, then you maybe still have some quality players in the draft. But if you're keeping 4 or more players, then how valuable is that first round pick to keep Thielen, whereas you could be keeping Hopkins and a couple of other players, and you're probably just banking on rookies. So it just depends on how many keepers you have. The more keepers there are, it's probably more valuable to hang on to that one guy, Hopkins. If it was just a 1 or 2 keeper league, though, I can see the value in grabbing Thielen and keeping him in the 8th round.
Okay, we got one last trade here. It's a straight up redraft half point PPR. Miles Gaskin or Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, interesting. In a vacuum, I'm always going to go running back. This is going to be team dependent as always. So I think it's a pretty fair trade if both teams are coming from a position of power and can afford to lose that other guy. Yeah, half point PPR. I'll go with Gaskin just in a vacuum because running backs, are just too valuable here in a redraft league.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, anytime you're doing a wide receiver for a running back straight up, then it tends to be a pretty team dependent move as far as, what depth you have where. I'm with you. In a vacuum, I'd probably go Gaskin. However, McLaurin, like if you're sitting there, say you're undefeated right now, you're destined for the playoffs here. McLaurin's week 15 and 16 matchups are Seattle and Carolina. And from a playoff standpoint, that's kind of hard to pass up. I mean, that's a league-winning matchup. Not to mention, leading up to that, I mean, he's on a bye this week, I believe. Yeah, he's on a bye this week, but he's got the Giants, Detroit, Cincinnati, Dallas. So you also get 4 smash matchups here coming up. But yeah, those 2 playoff matchups are kind of hard to pass up. But yeah, I'll stick with Gaskin, but I'm very hesitant to do so.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. And I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to look toward playoff matchups, but it still is, a month and a half away. And if we've learned anything through these first 7 weeks, there is a lot of uncertainty 6-7 weeks away. So I take it as kind of, information, but I don't think it weighs one way or the other.
And I guess to provide a proper comparison, so Gaskin's week 15 is New England, so that's tougher. But week 16, championship week, they got Vegas, and Vegas is one of the worst rush defenses in the league as of right now. I mean, half a season away, who knows? But so he also has a really good matchup for at least one of the weeks as well. And yeah, like you said, you're still dealing with bye weeks and stuff like that, and running back's a lot harder of a hole to fill during bye weeks than a wide receiver is, that's for sure. Well, that's going to wrap up the show here, Will. Do you have any closing thoughts for everyone?
Yeah, good luck, everyone, in the matchups this week. Hopefully we get some, good games. I'm excited for tomorrow's Thursday night game. I know, as you are alluding to, Louise, they're not always the most appealing, but I do like that matchup with Carolina and Atlanta. So it should be high scoring, and wish health to everybody's teams.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for listening, everyone. Tune in next week when we go over the waivers and start sits for week 9. Until then, trust your board.